Hey everybody, this is Chris from Lords of War, Games and Hobbies. I hope you're having a great day. Jay's kind of been bugging me to do some of these faction focuses on my armies, and I figured, Jay's out of town this week. Maybe I'll do one of these instead of just rambling by myself in a video for you guys on a certain topic. So this is my Idoneth Deepkin. I painted these, geez, I want to say maybe 3, 4 years ago. And I brought them to Adepticon that year. And at the time, we were playing Age of Sigmar second edition. This is like a late second edition. And people say 2.5, whatever you want to say, whatever you want to call it. And yeah, this army was pretty mean at the time. And well, I have a lot more than an army painted here, so I'll just give you a quick broad view before I start to go into specifics of how I painted it and what I actually had taken to the event. But I believe it's 21 eels painted, which was the bulk of the force at the time. And yeah, so at the time, the eels were kind of a very strong meta unit, especially the lance eels, because they did this like surgical strike. And so I wanted to build my army around this idea of this fast striking cavalry army. And of course, the Idoneth have awesome special rules that are very thematic. They ride it on this ether sea, and the way the tide moves, it affects the way the army can kind of fight in every turn. So they have like first strike in one turn, they can like run and charge in another turn, they have cover in another turn. So and this little elf right here, she is really important, or was very important to the strategy, because she allowed for you to flip the table around so you could have like different things happen in different order, which I thought was really cool. These are the thralls, which were actually a pretty decent combat unit for their points. I just love the miniatures too. And one of the Jay I always get made fun of all the time. This is sort of like they call it a Chris thing. It's like the head swap conversion. I'm kind of famously known for this. I'm not a big converter, but I do like to do my head swaps. So I actually was able to, thanks to the gracious donations of many, many hobbyists and friends who had also bought Idoneth armies, I was able to accumulate a vast number of extra heads. And you actually get these heads in the eel kits. And so I had to actually get a huge amount of extras, and I used them instead of the thrall heads, because I wanted thematically, obviously this does break with the Idoneth theme of them being like sickly, almost like war boys from Fury Road, where they're like slowly dying because their souls are incomplete. So Teclis did this grand spell to bring back the elves, but Slaanesh had devoured a lot of their souls. And so a lot of these elves come back and they're not complete. Their souls are broken, and so they start to die. And the whole point of the army, and this is why they're released in the Soul Wars, is they actually raid the shores to actually grab extra souls to keep their people alive, keep the Mardi alive. And the only ones that are actually born complete end up becoming essentially nobility, and they're the knights essentially, so the Kellians. So that's the eels, the characters. They're actually complete elves. But I want to paint all my guys as elves. I'm a big elf fan from Warhammer Fantasy Battles, so I want to just like kind of elf tones. So obviously I picked some bright tones here. I went with almost like I did like a blue that kind of blends into a soft turquoise. Because like the paints are like they're Vallejo paints, like I think royal blue until like a emerald, and then I believe I used almost like a Games Workshop Goss Blaster green mixed in for the highlights. I wanted this like sea kind of color tone to it, and then with the purple, it was really just like, okay, what pairs well with this? What looks right? And then the golds, obviously, also pairing with the purples, looking really sharp. And then obviously, I just wanted this sort of like seaside kind of thing, right? So obviously, we went with the beach, and then I have all these stones are really cool actually. This is a fun little trick. I've passed this on many times. This is super Sculpey. You can get like a brick of the firm stuff for really cheap. You basically like take a piece, you like roll it out really thin, or as thin as you want. You bake it, and then you just basically smack it with a hammer a bunch of times, and it makes all these like cool rock shapes. And then you just paint them up on the base, and I think they look pretty natural and cool. Some people use cork, but I like the Super Sculpey if you want just like bigger rocks that kind of look a little bit more, I think a little more realistic. Yeah, and So how did I actually tackle painting this army? Well, good question. It was a lot of work. So uh, obviously the Adepticon project was the first wave. I did those 21 eels. Some customers would come in the shop for a little while and just like mock me and make fun of me. Oh, more eels, more eels. How many more eels? It was a lot, and the airbrush obviously helped a ton. I airbrushed the eel part, like the blue, and then the softer kind of turquoise on top. And my strategy for airbrushing the actual riders or the infantry, I actually just did the gold with the airbrush mostly because I don't like airbrushed cloth. I like to hand paint the cloth. And I don't like airbrushed skin. I like to hand paint the skin. And I felt like metal was the one thing that I could sort of like compromise on, if you will, in terms of like airbrushing. So yeah, it didn't save me a ton of time on the infantry, but I always look at it this way: like if you can get one part of the model almost finished with, so I would basically do like a dark gold base and then one sort of like zenithal highlighted gold tone over top. I believe I used the scale 75 golds. I used necro gold and elven gold, if you're wondering. And I think citrine is just like the edge highlight. And then I actually also airbrushed a purple shade over top of them as well. I think I do that at the very end of the model, though, on the whole model. We learned that from Mr. Sergio Calvo in Spain. He calls it cappy basing. It's a sort of way you basically like tint your whole model at the end to add like a little bit of depth and shadowing. And so the Games Workshop shades work amazing for that because they're super thin, and you just spray them right through with the airbrush. You have a lot of control where you kind of want to add more shadows and depth to the color. So that was it. Yeah. So basically that's how I kind of my process for painting. But yeah, honestly, it's a lot of painstaking layering and highlighting, as you can see in like the skin and stuff. There's a lot of work there, and I'm pretty proud of this army. I think I got a third place in best painted. As you can see, my turtle wasn't part of the display. I think if he was, I would have had a much better shot at first place. One of my problems is my tournament armies very rarely include like a big centerpiece, and this is kind of a big fault. This is where I gotta stop being such a power gamer and just like paint paint an army that looks good. Is I didn't include the turtle at the time. He wasn't super good, but he would be a beautiful centerpiece. I have like the nice base with the shoreline on there. If you're wondering how to do really good shoreline paint jobs, if you want to know how to do that, they're actually really easy. If you have the AK water effects stuff, we sell it in store. But even if you're obviously watching from another country or whatever, you can probably find a local place that sells AK products. And AK has some really, really good in-depth YouTube tutorials where you can literally just follow along. And yeah, I knew nothing about doing this sort of thing, and then I just followed along and got like a perfect result because I just followed the video. I love copying just like as much as the next person. My sharks and the turtle were added during the pandemic, so this would have been a year after. I just wanted to flush the army out, and I really enjoyed them. I kind of just painted them for fun. I used them a little bit in third edition. I played a couple tournaments with them, and they're really fun. I really like the sharks. The sharks are not only do they look awesome, they're basically the chariots of this army. But so they fight pretty well, and they shoot really well. Which is kind of an interesting thing about the Idoneth Deepkin is they actually are a pretty darn good shooting army. With all the shots you get from the turtle, the sharks, the reavers here can be pretty nasty as well. So you can build this army in a couple different ways. One way is just to kind of be this like hit and run shooting army, which can be really effective. And the one problem with the eels is as the game progressed in third edition, the damage curve of the game kind of took off. And they lost a little bit of their edge. They just didn't punch enough hard for how soft they were when they hit back. They got hit back. So they started to sit out a little bit more in favor of like thralls, sharks, and the turtle. But I'm really hoping to revisit this army at some point in the new edition. I have pretty much everything painted for it. At this point, I'm waiting for, hopefully maybe they'll release some new units because the range is actually not that big. So I'd like to see some new Idoneth units come out. That would be pretty nice. So I can pull them back out and be excited about them again. But let me know if you have any questions about the army. I can answer any sort of recipe questions. One thing I like to do, and if you don't do this, I highly recommend it, is to keep a painting journal when you're painting an army or any project that you might go back to one day, or you think you might not, but you might still. Keep a painting journal, log the colors you used for what steps. I just say like, it's a really simple thing. It's uh, skin, these 3 colors, cloth, these 3 colors, armor, these 3, just little simple journal. That way, if I'm ever going back to it. So if you have any questions about colors or anything like that, or want to know more about how I painted them, just let me know in the comments below. Happy to answer those questions for you. Yeah, or if you want to send me a picture of your High Death Army, I'd love to see them. I was a huge fan of the elves. I always loved this concept, so it's one of my favorite armies for sure. Hope you enjoyed this army showcase. If you want to hear certain things for the next one, let me know so I can make these videos better for you guys. Oh, this little guy over here. Yeah, this was just a prototype. I was thinking about doing some Lumineth as like pseudo allies, but also for their own army. So this is just a paint scheme I kind of played around with, and I wanted to have basing that kind of fits so the armies could kind of blend together. Who knows? Maybe 4th edition will be the time that I get into Lumineth, and if I do, I really like this scheme, and I'll probably go into it. Like and subscribe. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys next time.